Okay, so I wanted to respond to this comment, and I did in the comment section on Instagram, but I want to respond to it in video format because she's made a really good point, and this is valid, where she said that they, when she's seen it happen, that they're requesting permission or requesting consent from the person's higher self. And this is where this gets quite nuanced, because this can be the case sometimes, but here's where I think it's a bit of a cop-out in the situations that I'm discussing, where you're kind of posting people's celebrities' images online and then discussing their stuff publicly. Yes, sometimes you can request a person's higher self, the consent of a person's higher self, to do some work on their light body. But usually that would be like, if I've ever done that, that's been like, like a close friend or a close family member that hasn't come to me for a session, but I know that they're struggling, but they don't really understand the work or what it does. So they don't know that they can come to me for a session, or maybe they're, like don't want to ask, or are financially struggling and don't want to hire me for a session. But I know that, sending them a certain amount of healing energy or a certain type of healing energy can clear whatever they've got going on. And I can see what their light body is showing me, because their higher self is actually giving me consent to see it. Yes, okay, sometimes, okay, or sometimes in the field, we've been shown things about a person's partner, or sometimes an ex-partner that's hooking into their light body, and then we can also, remove that. Or sometimes there's things like entity removals that we've done on family members, because the entity is having a negative impact on the client. And so, in the case of like bloodline entities, for example, like ancestral entities that are basically attached to somebody's bloodline, they might be attached to a parent or a grandparent. Maybe the client has suffered like narcissistic abuse, and the parent or grandparent has an entity attached to them, and that entity is actually causing that person to behave in harmful, abusive ways that are putting the client at risk. Then yes, we can remove the entity and things like that. And generally, when I'm working with a client, their ancestors will be healed by the work, and the higher self of the ancestor, can just be a parent or a grandparent, will consent to receiving that healing. But that's usually very, very light work. Like, it's not like I'm not like scanning their whole light body and seeing like everything that's going on with the person, because that person hasn't given me consent. It will just be like running a little bit of energy through their, spinal column, or, just removing, interfacing systems that are around their light body. It won't be like going really, really deep into the light body and exposing their trauma and their issues for public consumption. Okay. I don't even post testimonials that clients give me without explicit consent from the real client. I don't just ask the client, their higher self would be okay with this. No, okay. It's just, and in this particular case that I was discussing, she did actually say, Candace's higher self is going to allow me to remove this. And I just think that that's not true. She's completely made that up. Because there's no way that somebody's higher self would consent to being publicly humiliated and denigrated, especially for the purpose of, counteracting her anti-Zionist position. Like, God is not pro-genocide. God does not support blowing up babies. Like, this is so simple and obvious. Obviously, I'm not attacking the person that's asked this question. I'm just, responding in general. And besides, I personally don't think it's ethical to be doing field work on somebody who you don't like. I won't do field work on somebody that I don't like, because I am obligated to act in the person's highest good, okay? An ethical field worker is going to work with the Most High to act in the client's highest good. And And if you have a personal issue with the person that you're working with because of, let's say a values mismatch, for example, it's going to be difficult for you to do that. And even if you can do that, in general, I feel like it doesn't serve you and it doesn't serve the client, because not only are you not going to be able to give them a good session, if they're also feeling weird about you and don't fully trust you, they might also not, their light body might not take to the work, their higher self might not give consent, basically. And if there's anything bad that happens, like let's say for example they suffer some emotional detox, or the work doesn't take properly, and something bad happens in their life, they will come and they will blame you for it, okay? So you will suffer energetic lashback. Their demons can come after you and try and attack you for it, or they could just try and ruin your professional reputation because they don't like what you're saying, okay? They might have something personal against you. So in general, it's not a good idea to be working on somebody's field who you don't like. And I just find it very, very hard to believe that that Candice gave consent for her light body to be scanned by somebody who dislikes her and who doesn't agree with her position and is trying to get her to stop criticizing Israel for their genocide against Palestinians and blowing up babies. I just think it's a cop-out, and I just think that she was just using her to farm content, and probably is not working with the Most High, is probably working with nefarious entities that are feeding her faulty information. And she might even be putting, like, you just don't know what that person's doing. Like, that person could be like pulling out actual templates that belong to you and then putting in faulty templates. So yeah, I don't know if your higher self would even allow that to happen, but some people's higher self isn't fully coming in anyway, because they have so many overlays hooking into their light body that prevent the higher self wisdom from even coming in. So yeah, obviously this is a really deep topic and I could talk about this for a long time, but I'll just leave it there for now.